here now. Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
Hello. Great being here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be talking about AWS CDK and Ask Us Anything. So we're going to have some things for the audience to share and like some updates to provide for them. But first off, would you mind giving yourself a quick introduction?
Rico.
Yeah, of course. Sure. Thank you, Pahud. So my name is Rico. I'm a software developer on the AWS CDK team. So I work on this product myself directly every day. What else? I guess might be interesting. I'm based in the Netherlands. So in your good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. For me, it's actually afternoon at this point. Around Leiden is, if that means anything to anybody listening.
Yeah, I realized that we didn't say where we're from. I'm from Vancouver, Canada, and then Ricardo.
Yeah, and I'm speaking at least for North Carolina, Raleigh, but I'm from Brazil originally. So, and a matter of fact, for everybody that's in the chat, can you tell us where you're coming from as well? I think that's one piece of information that's always good to know. And Pahud, tell us about yourself as well.
Okay. Hi, my name is Pahud Xie, and I was previously solution architect and developer advocate from AWS Taiwan. And this year, I just transferred my role as community manager, and I'm currently based in New York City. And I know that we have some viewer from Taiwan and mainland China, so I would like to say hi, 晚上好, 晚安. From the
I'm kidding.
From Asia. Thank you.
I was like, oh, I like that. I like this. This is happy words. But yeah, I guess, how did we want to kind of get started? I know we're live and we've got some questions and things we wanted to talk about. So I guess, the first thing I'm going to ask is there anything that you've been working on in the last little while that you'd like to share with us and the audience? Just to get started and warm up.
Yeah, of course. Maybe let's also do a little baseline, because I don't know if everybody in the audience is familiar with what CDK is. So we can do
that's a good starting place.
And then, because there's a couple of things to know, because it's different. I think it's very special from other things at AWS, right? And a couple of things here are different. But first, what is it for? The point is to make it easier to use infrastructure as code, right? And what does that mean? It means when we need other services, AWS has a bunch of services like storage and compute and whatnot, right, that you need to run your application on. We typically call that infrastructure, although I think that term is a little outdated maybe in these days. I would call it managed services, but the term infrastructure has stuck. So we call it infrastructure. And traditionally, you would make those things by going into the console and then go and click, give me a new bucket, click, give me an EC2 instance, and then you have it, and then you run your code there. This is all well and good until you need more than one copy of it, for example, to test on, or to have multiple production environments for different customers, or staging environment, acceptance test environment, typical one, and a development environment. All of those things should be the same, but if you click them together in the console, right, they might not be, because you might have made mistakes, because you're only human, right?
Yeah.
So infrastructure as code is a way to make that a repeatable process. You write down in code what your application needs, and then you feed it to a system, right? In our case, it's CloudFormation, but we can get to that. You feed it to a system that's going to go aha, I know exactly what your application needs. Let me make this and this and this and all these copies exactly the same. So it's very predictable what you need, and you can commit that, right? You can version control it with your code and all that. So it's a very, I want to say, convenient and very important way to manage this as part of your application. So and CDK. All right, sorry, was that a question?
No, just a quick comment. I was about to say that you use the word repeatable, right? And I like it because Darko likes to kind of identify himself I used to be a sysadmin, right? So because that was a formal way to describe the people that would take care of the infrastructure and ultimately the people that does the deployment of applications. And back in the days, just like he likes to say, you see, Darko, you were with us all the time. So back in the days, we would have this kind of a concept of deployment manual, right? So that's where the folks from infrastructure would kind of follow a given set of instructions step by step religiously to make sure that the application would be installed. But again, it with human being follow a set of instructions, it gives open for error. Like, so repeatability, just like you described, is a very strong principle of automate infrastructure deployment. So that's
no, exactly. And you have like progressing insight, right? You can set it up once and that's fine, right? At some point you go like, but I know something I can do here more cleverly, and you go and update the manual and maybe do it in one place, but are you going to remember to do it everywhere, right?
Exactly.
And the bigger your team gets, right, that becomes less feasible and communication is going to break down. Yeah, no, computers are way better at following instructions than people are.
Way better, yeah. Although my Mac sometimes misbehaves and doesn't follow the instruction I gave it to you, but might be just me. I don't know.
My Windows does that sometimes too. Also my Mac.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially when I'm live.
Yes, most of the time.
Anyway, and then, sorry, let me get back to the story because I have a sales pitch here, right? For everybody listening in the stream who doesn't know yet what CDK is and why they need it. So we have infrastructure as code. We've agreed it's a good thing, right? Now, existing infrastructure as code solutions, typically there are a different couple you can use, and they either mostly require you to learn a new programming language, which is fine. You can learn a new programming language, but also a lot of people don't really want to, right? They have a favorite language and want to stay in that area where they're comfortable. And you can, this new programming language probably doesn't have as good of a tool set as your programming language, right? It doesn't have your IDE autocomplete, your highlighting, your linters, your type checking, your whatnot. It might not. It kind of depends on who builds it. But that's a downside of doing it in a different language. It might not have a package manager if you want to share your code around with other people. And they might also, depending on the solution you pick, might require you to let go of the conveniences of the console. So the console is very task-oriented, and you go around. Here's an example, right, that I can, from real life from AWS. You go to create a Fargate cluster or an ECS cluster, and the console goes, I know what you need first. You need a VPC. So let me first create a VPC for you, right? And then we'll go ahead and get you started and create the cluster in there. And this is basically, it's 2 clicks. You don't need to do anything. It goes, you know you need a VPC? And you say, make me one. You wait a bit, and then you go on. This is all great. As soon as you go down into like the automated scripting infrastructure as code world, all of a sudden that convenience disappears because that convenience was built into the console, and you're not using that right now. So it just goes like, give me the VPC. Right, the where you're typing your infrastructure, and then you go like a VPC, but what is that, and how do I make that, right, and what goes into that, and that turns out to be a whole can of worms, right? And so you're also forced to work at a much lower level, right, depending on what it is, and so CDK kind of solves those 2 issues for you. I want to say, right, this is the sales pitch of CDK. It is infrastructure as code that knows what you're trying to achieve. It's intent based. You're going to go. Your new ECS cluster, and it's going to go, you need a VPC. Here's one for you, right? Configured with all the bells and whistles. And also, it's in your programming language. So you can use this in TypeScript and Python and Java and C# and Go, right? If you know any of these already, you can use CDK and be productive on day one.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
That was my sales pitch.
I'm sorry, I'm like inappropriately laughing because I'm watching chat. So I'm like listening to you while I'm also watching chat. There's a full discussion right now about bringing sledgehammers and screwdrivers and plugging a screwdriver directly into the Docker containers.
Rico, she's not laughing about you, right? So you're doing good. You're doing good.
No. But I'm very interested.
Here we go. Just pop that up. There's been a few more before that, but I really like this idea that you've mentioned of being able to bring your own tools, right? Bring your own language, bring your own things that you need to the stack instead of having to completely adjust to whatever it's been written in or whatever it happens to exist in. And I love the idea of actually having all the linting and everything as well, because it's just nice to not have to set that up yourself. But yes.
Yep.
I think Ricardo was going to ask something. So.
Yeah, no, just a quick question for Pahud and Rico. And by the way, everybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to bring them in, and we'll collaborate with you to bring it. But the question I have is that I've read somewhere, probably on the documentation for CDK, that one of the kind of also like part of the speech, right, of the technology is that it controls and manages some of the defaults for you. And I think this is extremely powerful because most of the time when you were creating a VPC, you won't remember like all the kind of best practices that you have to apply for a VPC. For example, how many availability zones you have to create for that VPC. So 3, 4, 17, 25. So having these defaults in place, I think that's a powerful construct. But the question for Pahul and Rico is this kind of available for all the programming language supported or for specific ones?
Specifically the defaults, you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. No, that is built into the entire system. So that is for every language it's available and it behaves the same, right?
Okay.
For those different programming languages, the syntax will be different, but the behavior is the same.
Yeah, so that's good to know because that means, everybody, that regardless of the programming language that you are leveraging with CDK, there is kind of another value that you can leverage, which is like there is insight in the SDK built in. So that is something that you have to consider as well when you compare with other strategies, right?
Yeah. And this is actually, I want to, if we can get into this, right? This is not an AMA yet, but it is a super interesting trade-off because specifically I gave VPC as an example, and it's like a shining example of there's a lot of complexity there that we hide for you and go like, haha, here's a VPC. So it's a good example of doing that, and at the same time, it's like a somewhat not so great example, right? Or it's contentious. Let me put it like that, because all the decisions we make are fantastic.
Yep.
As long as the defaults we pick are good for you. Now, if they are not, then we made a mistake, right? And we have had some feedback actually from the community that, especially people that live in that work in like big organizations where they have complex setups and lots of requirements, and they have VPCs to bind together, and then a VPN gateway to their home office, and then a couple firewalls in between, and all that, right? Which they need to do for all very good reasons. Turns out we weren't expert enough when we built that we weren't able to predict all those requirements, and now it's kind of chafing. So we need to find a way, and we can change the meaning of what VPC is, because that will change the meaning of everybody's code. So we're going to have to come up with a way to deal with that, right? So there's it's a good thing for you as a user if we get it right, and the onus is on us to get it right? But that's a tough job that requires expertise and taste and manual design. We do our best. We sometimes get it wrong, and then we do try to make up for that and fix it later on. But as a result, it is kind of, there are, I have to be honest, there are a couple issues left and right, and we're doing our best to catch up with it, right? And I hope you can understand why it is this way, right? We do our best to make it as convenient as possible, without making the right choices or making it impossible to achieve what you need.
Yep.
But sometimes we miss a detail, right?
I personally totally understand that, because I don't believe that there's actually a technology that can solve all the default parameters for all the use cases, right? That's simply not true. So
there are very many use cases.
Exactly, very many variations. So you build some, you hope for the best, and you did what is most important already, which you listen for feedback. That's very important. So, by the way, if I'm someone that has an opinion about some of the defaults, how's the best way to contact you, Pahud, and the engineering team about to provide this feedback? The GitHub issues is as a place that could work with this?
Yeah. So definitely, we welcome all the feedbacks on the GitHub issue, because we have a very public and popular repository, and we have a lot of issues for many public discussions. Some issue probably does not fit to all scenarios, and we really like to know what is your scenario, what is your use case, and does this fit to most of people, or is it just the edge cases? So we can discuss is there any good solution or a good workaround for this, or should we just make it part of our code base as default? So so we are encouraged to to discuss just create an issue on the GitHub before we create a pull request to merge into the code base.
Thank you.
That is actually a good point, right? You can contribute. I didn't get to this. This is one of the ways in which I want to say CDK is different from many other AWS products. Is we are open source. We are on GitHub, right? You can actually contribute, right? You can mold the CDK, right, a little if you think you have a good idea, right, and you have a good use case, and you think I know how to solve this for a good amount of users with minimal fuss on their part, right? I know what the defaults here need to be. Please, let us know. Make that pull request. We can talk about it, and it will get in.
Just popping this up to make sure, but we've got the GitHub issues page that we were talking about before. While I'm sharing it, please definitely tell me if I've grabbed the wrong GitHub issues. But
no, this is our issues page, totally.
Perfect. Googling while people are talking, like I will find the page. So yeah, as we've been talking about, if you have any feedback or things you'd like to submit, this is the place to do it. You can see we've got a couple discussions already open here. And yeah, it's transparent, it's visible, as you've mentioned. So I've linked it in chat as well. If you're looking to get feedback from the audience, like this is where you go.
Speaking about feedback, Jackie, there's a question here for Abshore. So is the one that started with, can I pitch to security that CDK does least privilege for us?
I'm going to say yes, but they might not believe you. And that is, so we do our damnedest best to make this true, and we review everything, and we make sure that if we will add minimal actions and scope them to a specific resource and all that if you use grants, right? Which we didn't really get into, but it's like a mechanism we have where if you have a table resource, right, it's just going to be a variable called table or bucket in your code, and you'll hit bucket dot, right? You'll get an autocomplete list of all the things you can do with that, and one of those methods is going to be grant read or grant read write, and then you give, you pass in your EC2 instance or Lambda or whatever that needs that read access, and that's it, right? And if you use that, I want to say you kind of don't have to think about IAM anymore, right? Which is I know is a pain point for many people, and we will make sure that we get it right on your behalf. So I want to say yes, but depending on your security organization, that might not be good enough. And in fact, this ties neatly into something we wanted to talk about going forward, is that we actually have plans for making it easier to give the security department of your organization a confidence in what CDK is doing, or let me put it like that, integrating into an existing process, right? There's a couple levels at which the security department of your organization can trust you. It could be they completely trust you and you go ahead, right? Fantastic. You can use CDK, you can use grants, you'll have least privilege permissions. There is another thing, and the next level is using a feature called permissions boundaries. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it allows like someone who sets up your account to say, normally the risk here is if we allow people to create roles, right? They can give those roles permissions, and you could create, you could, even if you yourself don't have admin permissions, right? Like, so for example, there might be config rules in your application, and to check various things in your account, I should say, config rules in your account, which will check whether there aren't any security violations in any of your resources. And an attacker, right, if they had admin privileges, could turn those off, and that would be bad. So what a administrator will do is say, well, you don't get to have administrative privileges, so you can't fiddle with config. So far, all good. But then the next step is, if you are able to create a role, you can give that role arbitrary privileges, or a user, right? And so you can make yourself an admin role, which you then go to assume, and then you still have the thing you weren't supposed to be able to do. Permission boundaries are the way around it, and it allows administrators to draw like a box around your permissions and saying you can do anything that I describe within this box, and anything outside it you can never do. And also you cannot create any roles that go outside that box, right? So they can put config outside the box, other stuff inside the box, and allow you to create roles whatever you want, and while still being sure that you cannot get out of that box. But that requires your IT department also to kind of, be familiar with that and trust that whole process and all that. So we are working on making that easier. We have plans there. But in case that doesn't work, we also have plans to kind of integrate into a flow that a lot of, I don't know if I can disparage customers, so I'm not going to say it. Probably not, right? I'm going to say larger existing organizations with an established process. Fall into is where you submit a request to a central organization to create you a bunch of roles, right, with a certain set of permissions, and then they come back to you and go like, "Yep, we created them. Here are the names, and now you can use those in your application." So traditionally, CDK has not worked very well in those kinds of environments because CDK really wants to create those roles itself, and it's not allowed to because the people over there are supposed to be able to create the roles. But we found a mechanism we think that's going to help in integrating into that process anyway. So instead of creating those roles, we're going to generate a report saying, hey, we still need this, right? You can hand that report, right? You don't even have to do anything yourself. You can hand that report off, right? They will come back with names and you plug those into your CDK application and then the rest just works automatically. So that is coming up. That is not live as of now, but those two changes are coming up.
I feel like we have 3 questions that relate to all of this.
Yeah, I'm pulling up here.
I think the first one I'm going to pop up here is, do we have any slide decks or handouts for common terminology or supplemental learning material, as they're not as familiar with many of the terms from coming into tech non-traditionally? I don't know why I had such a hard time reading that one, but I've linked the AWS CDK page, but is there anything else that we would like to share for learning material with them?
That's an excellent question. I actually, I don't know. I don't know. I also find that stuff is usually unnecessarily. I work myself into a corner there. Difficultly explained. This is not English. I'm sorry. It's not my native language. Not very easily explained. There you go. There's a website called AWS in Plain English, which I think is kind of fun. It covers most of the AWS products. I don't know if it really covers the tech terminology.
Do
you have any ideas?
Yeah, but I think most people first time using AWS, they probably would like to, for example, create an EC2 instance. Okay, so you definitely can go to the console, click a few buttons and create EC2 instance. And after that, you have the confidence that, okay, that is the instance I created. Then you probably can, jump into how CDK create EC2 instance or S3 bucket or SNS topic. So first you have to know what is that in your console and what is the console experience. And after that, you can try to provision similarly in your CDK. And there is a CDK workshop for most people to get it started. And the workshop helps you to create, for example, SQSQ, SNS topic, and anything around that. So that will be a good start point for new
beginners. That's a very good point. Yes, I see it getting linked in chat. The CDK workshop is very good to bring up. It's not a generic introduction to cloud terminology, but it's definitely a good introduction to CDK and how it works and some of the concepts in there. A couple terms we invented, so you're also not going to find them anywhere else, right? So you're going to you read, that's the one, that's CDK workshop. Yeah. And some of the terms we invented, and this workshop will run you through them.
Yeah, is there any key parts we should point out on the workshop that I can click in to show them, or is it just kind of?
No, I think pick a language on the left-hand side and then click through a couple slides, I suppose.
I like how we saw my mouse waver as I went, okay, which workshop do I
want
to
get which is your favorite? Yeah, go on.
Yeah. All right.
Right, and then the slides are just going to run you through building a couple simple applications.
I like this. This feels really nice. It feels really clean. I'm happy we came across this resource today because I probably wouldn't have found it if it hadn't gotten brought up.
Today, so
yeah.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. And by the way, for the person that did that question, Hilmi Works, we appreciate that question because this is also give us work material to build content for it. So if any of you feel that there's some specific topics, concepts, or terminology that you would like to have like content for it, like let us know, and we will work to create those and present it here. So
yeah,
ultimately,
that's a great idea.
That's
a great
we
idea.
want from you and the community.
I'm just going to pause really quick. I saw that we've had a lot of people join us recently, so I just wanted to welcome you all into the stream that have just joined. Today, we're here talking about the AWS CDK, and we've got Pahud and Rico from the team, and we are doing this an Ask Us Anything. So if you have CDK questions, drop them into the chat. I don't know which way it is, so I'm pointing, but we're hoping. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Yeah, and of course, we're interested in seeing where you've joined from too. So feel free to drop in where you're tuning in from. We'd love to see that. And yeah, we're gonna keep going then.
Yep.
Please.
I said that, and then I was like, oh, what was I gonna ask next? Transitions.
Can you do the transition? Oh, no, you do it now, right? Because I did the first one. So.
Oh no, we're totally still in the segment. We don't need any. I don't think there's any more transitions left today. Like actually.
So in this case, there's a question from East. Like, is there a place we can see a roadmap of features, L2 resources coming down to the pipeline? I don't know what L2 resources are. What are L2 resources? I've never.
That's one of the terms we invented.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we have. This was a bit of searching at the start of CDK, and at some point we kind of settled on saying, well, the constructs that you're working against, right, are layered, and we'll give them numbers, and one level's higher than the other, and that's just the thing that's stuck. So that's what we call it now. So what we call an L1 is basically the lowest level of resource, where you're supposed to specify everything yourself. You need to know exactly what you're doing, right? You're in control, you're in full control, but also you're in full responsibility, right? This is direct from CloudFormation. That came up again. I can go into that if you want. And it's actually also the wider AWS resource model. So you can create a let's say a bucket, right, has a bunch of properties, and you need to know what each of those mean, and then supply the right values for them. And then you can give that to either CloudFormation or a new service called Cloud Control API, which is sort of a CloudFormation Lite, which does one resource at a time and instead of a whole bunch at a time. I can go into any of that if that needs any elaboration. But for now, let's say the L1 layer is the layer where you're in full control and you give all the properties. The L2 layer is the thing we built on top. That's the handcrafted. Let's help you out, right? Let's figure out what good defaults are. Let's add a neat API on top. Let's add types so you can't get it wrong. That whole thing is an L2. And then we've said L3s also exist, but we didn't really build them ourselves, or some sister teams of also from AWS do. Our team ourselves doesn't really build any, debatably. We can get into that as well. But an L3 is like purpose built. So the L2 is also is helpful, but still generic. And then the L3 on top is purpose built for a specific use case. So CI/CD, right, is an L3 that we debatably have. Better example may be that from a sister team of ours, the ECS team, are maintaining their own constructs. They have an application load balanced Fargate service or something, right? Which does exactly one thing. It puts, sets up a Fargate service with a load balancer in front and a replica count, and presto, you have a web service, right? It does that and only that. And you can't really tweak a lot about it. That's just what it is, right? You can go like, but can I also add in a queue processor? No. This is just an HTTP service, nothing else. And that's an example of an L3, right? And the trade-off here is we take away flexibility, but in return you get speed and simplicity, right? Because there's a bunch of choices you don't have to think about because we thought about them.
I really like hearing that example specifically because I feel like as a operator, that's something that's hard to figure out. Like, what are the trade-offs that I'm making, and at what layer is the layer that is the proper one for me to be working in? So, I really appreciate that explanation.
Like someone down the line who have to make a decision, right? There's a constant in life, so I think that's important for everybody to know, so they can do better decisions. So
yes,
we'll take a a little break now because I would like to hear from Pahu, because here's the thing: there's a whole community that has been built around CDK, and Pahu has some updates about this community that would like to share with us. Is that correct, Pahu?
Yes, definitely.
There's some updates, and I think we've got a bunch of questions and comments as well. So
Yep.
I think what we'll start with is, how does somebody get involved with the community? Because it's a question that we got here. If you're from the community, how do you get involved with it?
That's good. That's good.
And then we'll transition into the updates, because I want to hear them too.
Yep.
Yep. So so actually we are having a very active community Slack. So if you go to cdk.dev, there is a totally community-owned Slack over there, and everyone is just feel free to join the Slack and join any general discussion or conversation with the existing community. And if you are a developer background and you are just ready to you have some idea and you have some issues, you can just jump into the our GitHub repository, because we already have more than 1,000 contributors in AWS CDK repository. So if you just bump into any issue, you can search existing issue and you can join the discussion in the thread of the issue. Or if you like, you can contribute your code as pull request against any issue, and the core team and the community will help you review and help you advance your PR. So that is very great. You can just hang out with people on Slack, or just contribute your code, or discuss with the community on GitHub.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. There is about the Slack, right? There is a vibrant, I want to say, open source community led by a couple of lovely people who set up a Slack environment. It's cdk.dev is the website. I see it being linked in the chat already. Definitely go there. They also organize a yearly CDK day, where it's like a day of conferences just dedicated to CDK, where it's community participants. Right, and yeah, everybody's welcome there for sure.
That's so great to know. Like, I'll definitely gonna participate there myself.
Yes, and we noticed that starting from this year, we are seeing that the Japanese community is getting more and more active. They are having their AWS user group CDK branch now. And they are also running their own CDK day, starting from this year, totally Japanese. And they are live streaming on YouTube with more than 1,000 Japanese developers watching the event. So we feel very excited. We see community not only from North America, Europe, but also in Asia very actively. Yeah, so we are very excited.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
It's really nice always to see like the different parts. We work on the geographical teams or the regional teams, so it's always neat to kind of see the different pockets of community that pop up and the areas that they specialize in. Like even just something like I guess CDK is going to be my example today, because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
How people develop that versus in Canada versus the US, or the US versus Europe, or any of the above versus Japan. Like I think that's really cool to kind of get to like see how that grows basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember already, and it's been going on for a long time already. I remember seeing years ago already like a pretty big stream of Japanese tweets on CDK that I just really never knew what they say, right? But it was like amazing to see this engagement.
Most likely they're saying something good, I hope.
I hope so. Yeah, of course.
Yep.
So now that you've given us a little bit about how to get into the community, what kind of community updates did you have to share with us?
Yeah. So actually, we are working on some initiatives for the community, and I would like to introduce something we are currently planning. So the first one is the CDK logbook. So logbook is something that we aggregate everything around AWS CDK, or for example JSII, CDK pipeline, and for example Progen, to aggregate into a single page and publish as on the monthly basis to allow customers to know, okay, what's going on, what's new on around CDK and the ecosystem last month, for example. So you don't have to follow every change log of the releases. You just follow the logbook. For example, if we have new EC2 instance support in CDK, for example, then what are the new EC2 instance types? You probably will not tell from the change log, but you can tell from the logbook. And for example, if we have new database version support, for example, Postgres, you will know all the detailed, all the supported version numbers in the logbook. So this is a great, idea for customers, especially enterprise customers, to follow everything around CDK, and we are trying to publish on monthly basis. And the second idea is that we are trying to build something for our CDK contributors. We are gonna build it on the GitHub repository. So at this moment, we have a lot of external contributors, and most of them are first-time contributors. They have have, for example, one PR contribution like that, and we really appreciate them, and we would love to help them to advance their PR contribution. So we are trying to identify those contributors, for example, first-time contributor, repeat contributor, value contributor, for example, and we are trying to create pages as labels when they create a new pull request. That will help us to follow up, to help them, and also track the community activities to help those, for example, first-time contributor can advance to become repeat contributor, and we can help people to graduate and promote from a very new contributor to a experienced contributor, and even we can introduce for example, the community reviewer with each other. So we are trying to introduce this idea integrated in the GitHub labels system. And the last but not least is that we are actually planning to run a dedicated YouTube channel around CDK. So if you notice that the container team, we have a container from the coach. There is a dedicated YouTube channel, and serverless team, they have a serverless land, and they are dedicated on everything around container and serverless. And we noticed that some community leaders, they are also running their YouTube channel, but the content is not the content is not collected in a single CDK channel. So we are looking for the opportunity to create a dedicated CDK YouTube channel, and we can have some live coding conversation with different internal AWS solution architect or external community leaders or customers to have conversation to allow them to showcase what the solution they built around CDK, and what they have learned from building solutions with CDK. So we are very excited to experiment some new initiatives for the community.
I just want to go back to the first one you talked about, the logbook. This sounds really great.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere that people can check that out now, or is there going to be like something upcoming that they can find?
Yeah. So yeah, we are still working on the July and August. Right. And we are looking for the opportunity to make it published hopefully on AWS blog post, so people can subscribe, can follow, and see what's new on CDK on monthly basis everything around CDK, not just AWS CDK, but also JSII, Progen, and CDK pipelines as well. Yeah. So we are still working on it. Hopefully we are gonna make it published in September or October.
Perfect. So coming soon. Keep your eyes out for it if you're interested in the
an
logbook,
eye on.
and hopefully it'll be out very soon. I'm looking forward to that, like a lot, actually.
I can lift a bit of the suspense here. I just wanted to call out one because I think it's an important one for many people. It is the change that got the most hearts and upvotes and love of the last month, which is support for concurrency. So traditionally, CDK would deploy all stacks in sequentially. It would automatically pick the order depending on what stacks use each other, right? And a contributor called Reagan Elm, shout out, implemented support for doing it in parallel. And it took some doing to get that in, but finally we got it in and we got it out. So this is available to everybody right now. So that is, I mean, I think that's the biggest one that everybody's been waiting for, especially seeing from the engagement on that pull request.
Yeah, I can imagine like how this is create popular. Like if you want to create like in parallel 3 ECS clusters, that will be one of the scenarios that this feature would allow us to. Like instead of creating one by one in sequence, you can do it concurrently.
Yeah. Depending on how you set it up, right? Because we need to get into CloudFormation specifics a little, which I don't know if you want to. But CloudFormation has the concept of a stack, and that's like the unit of basically its memory. It's the unit of its memory. And in a stack, you can create a bunch of resources, and it will do parallelism inside that stack. But the CDK CLI would only ever create one stack at a time. So it would go create this stack, and if your 3 ECS clusters are all inside the same stack, you would get parallelism for free. But if you set it up where they would be in different stacks, then you would not. And now it's like all parallel all the time.
And that will be like regardless if the person writing the code using CDK are using a specific construct that requires concurrency. Like for example, in Golang, we have Go routines or threads in Java. So that will be regardless of those constructs.
Yeah, because by the time the actual deployment happens, your code actually isn't running anymore. So this would have been good. This is a good thing to point out, and maybe I should have brought this up earlier. But the application you write, your CDK application, is a description, should produce a description of what your application looks like.
Gotcha.
And it outputs that and writes that to disk, and then the rest of the tools are going to act on that description. And so it's not actually running anymore during the deployment. It's done its job, right? Its job is to produce output. You can produce that output concurrently if you want to. Generally, it runs fast enough that you wouldn't need to, right? And the deployment tools afterwards take care of all the concurrency.
So we're just coming up close on time. So I just wanted to ask one last question. I'm going to aim it at Pahud. Is there anything that you wanted to share with people but you didn't get a chance to yet, or we didn't get to ask you yet? Is there something you'd like to kind of, final parting words, last thing to share?
Yeah, so we are really excited to run our first MA like this for the community. But no, the time is very limited, but we welcome all the community to, if you have any idea, you can just ask us on the Slack or on the GitHub. Now we have the discussion for the AWS CDK repository, so you can feel free to ask any questions in the discussion or you have any issue. And we are looking for more opportunities to run the live streaming like this. It doesn't have to be MA, but also like, for example, maybe we can do office hours or anything around CDK to make us transparent and closer to the community to have some, dive deep into some different ideas around CDK. So we are very excited.
As you
That's
should.
awesome. It's so fun to work with people that are really excited for stuff, because like I get really excited about stuff all the time. So when other people are excited, I'm like, yeah, let's go. This is exciting. Let's do it. Like, I want to see more.
Yeah. We are definitely excited about CDK. I mean, I always say, this is the tool I wish I had, right? I get to work on the tool I wish I had 5 years ago, right? Which is very exciting.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's always such a nice feeling to have too.
Yeah.
And Rico, is there anything else that you wanted to share, like a final thing?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't do well with these kinds of questions. Just give me more like directed, like fact-based questions. No, I want to thank everybody. I think mirror what Pahud said is come talk to us. Let us know what what you need from us, because that's why we're here. And I want to give a shout out to the rest of my team who has been hard at work in the chat answering questions. and I appreciate it very much.
That was actually going to be
It's
my
not-
last
it's not
one.
a couple people job. We have a sizable team, right? And everybody needs to be recognized. You'll
Yeah.
find them all on GitHub and Twitter when you come and engage.
Yeah, I actually have to highlight the fact that today the chat was really, really busy, and the answers were popping up like almost in real time. So it was good to see. Like I was almost crying here to say, hey, this is working. We're doing a good job. Okay.
And there's nothing for us to do here, right? We're just kind of.
We're just having a coffee chat in front of, some number of people. It's
Yeah.
all good. But yeah, that was actually going to be the one I pointed out was it's been great to see all of the questions, both kind of community and technical, and where we're going in the future, and all the discussion that's happening in chat. This is like one of the most rewarding parts for me about doing this show is just getting to see people get help and get to ask questions and be engaged. So today's been a really fun episode for that. Yeah, I guess,
Yep.
Ricardo, is there anything that you would like to share finally?
Just to highlight the point, highlight the obvious, which is like I think one of the values that doing the work we are doing here in open and the community is that the conversation doesn't have to end here. Like you're probably seeing all the Twitter handles for Rico, Pahud, and Jackie. So if you have any questions, go there, follow us on Twitter. Eventually, there will be the YouTube channel that Pahud just mentioned. So I think the whole point of this work we are doing here is to keep the conversation going. Like it's like a one never-ending coffee that we are all drinking and continue the conversation. So keep that in mind. Other than this, Darko, I love you.
That's a good point. I'm going to drop everyone's social media handles into the chat. So if you're interested in hearing more, give us a follow, check us out. And otherwise, I think that's everything I've got to say today. We'll be back to stream next Thursday at the same time, same channel, same place, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. I don't know the time zone for the other time zones off the top of my head. But
6 in Central Europe.
There we go.
I can share. All right.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Thank you.
And thank the both of you for being here today. Your insights and knowledge were very appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a really fun session, and I've really enjoyed it.
Yep. And of course, thanks team. Thanks team in the chat again. Love you all.
Getting the last Twitter link in there. Oh, copy pasted that wrong, but that's close. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next week as well.
Same time, same day,
Bye.
Same energy. Bye. Take care.
See ya.
Hey there! Thanks for checking out this video. Remember to give it a like and share with your community. Then hit subscribe and the bell for all the latest content that will help you build on AWS.